Good morning, everyone. I learned a few minutes ago, as some of you have already may have already seen on the headlines, that there has been a shooting this morning at the University of Virginia. So as we begin, let's take a moment to open with prayer. Let's pray. Almighty God, we know that your heart breaks with the acts of violence that we carry out against one another. And we know that in Jesus Christ you are Emmanuel, God with us, and you are present in those unimaginable moments, those moments of fear and panic. And so we ask now that you would draw near to those families, to those students, to those faculty and staff, and offer comfort and speak your peace, which passes all understanding, and that peace which the world is unable to give. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Welcome to this morning's King Institute for Faith and Culture presentation. I'm delighted to welcome you on a cold, cold morning, both for those of you who are braving a chilly chapel and those of you who are online. I do want to make a couple of announcements before introducing this morning's speaker. We do have one more event coming up this fall, which is Catherine Patterson, King graduate from 1954, the winner of 2 Newbery Awards for Children's Literature and the winner of 2 National Book Awards. Catherine will be here on the 30th of November. In the evening, I'll have her on stage with 2 other Newbery Award-winning children's writers, Stephanie Tolan and Kimberly Brubaker-Bradley, and we'll be at Central Presbyterian Church on the evening of November 30th. In the morning of the 1st, which is a Thursday morning, Catherine will be here in chapel at 10 o'clock in the morning, a chapel she was in the 1950s, and she'll be back to read to us from her newly published memoir, Stories of My Life. So I invite you to come to those and meet probably King's most decorated and best loved graduate. She'll also be here for the first 2 performances of our fall play, which is going to be at the Paramount, and she'll be present for the first 2 performances on Thursday at the matinee and Friday night to do a little talk back after the play. So you have plenty of chances to meet her, which is well worth it. It's also well worth it to be here this morning. Dr. Lee Martin comes to us from Knoxville, Tennessee, where he is Professor Emeritus at the University of Tennessee in Engineering, and also president of the Trinity Health Foundation. He is somebody who, as a scientist, has been an innovator and an inventor. He's worked at the Oak Ridge National Labs. He holds 22 patents, this part I have to read, related to telepresence, remote imaging, virtual reality navigation, and battery charge sensing. Whatever that means, those are things that he has worked on inventing. And this is something that has spilled over between the worlds of science and business. One of the things that I like to do with the King Institute schedule is to try to bring in people who work at intersections of not just of faith and culture generally, but between many things. It seems to me that God's calling on us is a multiple thing. We are called to multiple things throughout our lives: family and community, job, avocation. And I think Dr. Martin is a great example of how these things weave together into one, because he has callings as a scientist and as a business person, and also as somebody who does sports. This afternoon, I can invite you at 4:45, the science seminar today, which science students will already be at, is going to be led by Dr. Martin about his book, Techonomics, which he will talk about between 4:45 and 6 or so. That'll be in the boardroom in the Student Center. You're very welcome to join us for that. He'll also be speaking in tonight at 7 o'clock in the boardroom in the Student Center about pickleball. Dr. Martin is a national champion in pickleball, and he's going to talk about that, America's fastest growing sport, tonight in the boardroom. So I'm delighted to welcome him here to the King Institute, and please join me in welcoming Dr. Lee Martin.
Well, good morning. It is such a pleasure and a privilege to be here to share with you some thoughts about your life journey. I am a technologist, I'm a business guy, but first and foremost, I'm a Christian. and I want to share with you a secret of the life journey that I hope you'll never forget. Boom, a metric for sustaining fullness in life. And you've got to be sitting there going, really? Come on. So I want your attention. You may be here to get a check mark on one of 12 attendances this semester. I want this one to be the one that changes your life. And I'm as serious as I can be with you. So please give me your unabided attention. Just open your minds a little bit today. How? How can I make that? I dare you to live your life to the fullest. I'm going to share that with you momentarily. We begin with an old Greek guy. The unexamined life is not worth living. I want to give you a metric and a means to examine your life regularly, to continuously improve yourself in every season of life. So, it's a process of purposeful examination and an action plan. We all use a physical mirror. We've got Mickey Mouse here taking a look in the morning. You pop that physical mirror up and go, oh, I got something in my teeth. I got to get it clean, all right? Every one of us probably looked in the mirror this morning. I use my wife to say, is my tie on right? You know, I can't see in the back. But how many of us have any kind of mirror on our balance in life? On our balance in life. That is what I want to give to you today. I'd like to say this is original. It's not. But when I have only one chance to talk to any young people, this is my message. It comes from a book called I Dare You by a gentleman named William Danforth. A nice, thin little book, almost 100 years old now. I believe it was published in about 1932 in the height of the Great Depression in the United States. Danforth went on to form and found the Ralston Purina Company. You might have heard of dog chow, cat chow, puppy chow, monkey chow, pony chow, right? You ever seen their packaging? It's got the checkerboard square on it. Familiar with that, perhaps? If you've seen the checkerboard square, this is the backstory to the checkerboard square. Basically, what Danforth said is that you want to run the race of life to the fullest, you need to balance 4 areas in your life. The mental side, the physical side, the relational side, and the spiritual side. And he came up with a way to do that through something called the 4-square test. This is the checkerboard square. We're going to go through that. You're going to actually take that test today. Hey, it's a college course. You're taking a test today. What do you expect, all right? And at the end, I will then share with you one more secret of the reason I can be so confident in sharing this with you as infinite wisdom. So I hope you're in for an interesting next 30 minutes. As the founder of Ralston Purina, he required all of his employees to read this book, to actually fill out this checkerboard square once a year in this book first published in 1931. So Danforth's I Dare You, his dare was about the mental side. You need to hone your skills. That's what you're doing in college, honing your skills so that you can be of service to others. On the physical side, you need to care for this temple so that you have the energy to serve. You have the energy to perform. On the social side, basically no man, no person is an island. If you want to accomplish great things, you're going to have to do it through the cooperation with others. And on the spiritual side, we are all on a journey of sanctification, that process of preparing for the next life, the next world in eternity. So these were the 4 key pillars of life for Danforth. And he wanted the people that he worked with to understand that. The key here, though, is balance in those areas. We have names for folks that are out of balance, like one that is all physical and has nothing else on the other side. We can typically in college call them a jock. One that is all in the books and has no social life, has no interaction with others, we can kind of call a geek sometimes. Those that are overextended on the social side and have no, they're not studying, they're not taking care of their body, they never sleep, they just party all the time. On UT's campus, we call them Greeks. I don't know what you've got here. And then, of course, those that have a very strong spiritual life but have not developed any other side of their life, we could kind of call a monk. They're just cloistered. We are intended to balance all of these sides. So what Danforth did was he created the checkerboard square. And you have a piece of paper before you, I believe. Did you all receive a piece of paper when you came in? Do you have a pencil? Do we still take pencils to class, or do we take our notes electronically? All right. I believe you can see Elizabeth on the way in or out, wherever she is, and she can give you that. But you should have a sheet with 3 segments on it. The top segment is the goal. It's a square. What Danforth is doing is he says, draw a line that represents the length of your effort, how you expend your time and your mental effort in each one of these areas. And that first one is, you just draw the square, sign your name, and say, this is my goal. I want to be in balance. Now, the fact of the matter is, we go through seasons of life where we are out of balance. Your college life, typically, if you are a devout student, you're probably out of balance on the mental side because you're spending so much time reading, so much time preparing for tests, so much time doing homework. Maybe the physical side, you don't have time to exercise. Maybe the social side, hey, I'm so focused on my books, I just don't have time. That's okay. You're in a season of purpose for a goal to prepare yourself mentally to serve society. But what Danforth wanted was, this is my goal, a nice, balanced square. I wish I had that. I wish I had that all the time. But the metric and the process is all about analysis of that from time to time. And this is where I'd like for you to take just a minute, and that's the middle. The middle is my current condition. What's your relative emphasis of these 4 areas? Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, this is a simple, easy exercise. Looking in the mirror is a simple, easy exercise, and you get correction from it. Oh, I need to part my hair different. Oh, I need to straighten my tie. This is a simple exercise with a very, very challenging result. So I am daring you, if you don't do it right now, to do it sometime today before you forget this effort, of draw a 4-sided figure, okay? It's not a quadrilateral, it's not a square, it's not a rectangle. It may be just a 4-sided figure, hopefully a closed figure. Your lines are long enough to meet, where each length represents the effort, the importance that you are putting into these parts of your life. All right? So, time for some true confessions. Here's kind of what mine looks like. You draw your balanced goal, which was the square, but then we draw and evaluate our current condition. And actually, this has changed a lot in the last 5 years for me, because the physical side 5 years ago was my smallest side. Now I'm playing dadgum pickleball all the time, and I am really getting a lot of exercise. I've dropped about 20 pounds and in better health now than I probably was a decade ago. Why? Because I didn't like where I was a decade ago, being overweight and being physically not strong. The sad thing about this thing is that the older you get, the more you got to work on the physical side, okay? It's not like a level thing. You got to keep working at it, all right? As I go around the horn here, my social side has, I'm still an introvert, believe it or not. I've taught classes long enough, I don't mind speaking, but the introvert side of me, I'm still working on stretching and embracing more people. But because of opening a pickleball facility, I've got 900 new friends in the last 2 years, so my social side has grown just a little bit. On the spiritual side, you see it's a little smaller there. Spiritual disciplines are important, and I am not necessarily the most disciplined person, but I do find time for daily prayer. I need to find more time for daily reading and study, trying to grow there. And then finally, on the mental side, that used to be, in my engineering days, massively the longest part of my curve, trying to run a company and trying to invent things and trying to work with people towards those goals. So my mental side was very long. I retired from teaching at the University of Tennessee about 1.5 years ago, and frankly, my mental side is shrinking. You know, it's all in the rearview mirror, but so be it. I need to be reading more, particularly technical literature, keep that sharp, but I don't really have a purpose and a goal. So now what I'm reading about is pickleball, which is not quite as mentally challenging as calculus and differential equations, but it has its own unique aspects also. So this is just an honest representation. I do this once a year. Now, my buddies and my friends say, what in Sam Hill are you doing opening a pickleball facility and playing pickleball all the time? They thought I was nuts doing it. It all came from this. Within a year before I finished my tenure of 13 years at the University of Tennessee, I said, okay, I'm not going to sit still very well. What am I going to do with my talents, my time, my capabilities, and to enjoy life, to stay active, and to stay involved in community? And so I invested in build a pickleball facility. Why? Because I got not only a one-fer or a two-fer or a three-fer, by golly, I got a four-fer. The greatest things, the fact of the matter is, the limiter on this square is one thing: your time. Young folks, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time on pursuits that mean nothing. Invest your time in yourself, in your friends, in your family, in your community. And this is a way to analyze what I'm doing with my time. You can never get that time back. You can't buy it back. You can't wish it back. It's gone. That's why this is all about intentionally examining your life. So as I began to examine my life, when I say I didn't just get a one-fer, I didn't pour myself into the books on pickleball. I did learn a lot about pickleball. I didn't pour myself into lifting and running and nothing else. I'm playing pickleball. But when I'm playing pickleball, I'm playing it with 3 or 4 friends, so I'm expanding the social side also. And what I've also found is that I am bringing life to people 60 and above that haven't exercised in years. And there's a spiritual aspect to that. A lot of new friends to pray for, a lot of new friends to pray with. So when you can invest your time in expanding multiple sides of this square at the same time, that's a pretty neat thing. So, as I looked at my true confessions, on the physical side, I was okay, getting good rest, no medications, no addictions except pickleball, which I am addicted to, but that's another story. I could still use to lose another 10 pounds, and I probably need to lift a little bit to maintain my strength. So what's my point here? You don't just draw the dadgum square to draw the dadgum square. You look at it and you say, am I satisfied with that or not? And frankly, there are times I'm out of balance and I'm satisfied with it because I know it's a season, I know what it's leading to, and it's still purposeful. But that doesn't mean I can't look at the square and then I begin the process of analysis. Where am I not quite satisfied with that? Am I addicted to something? Well, that's probably in the long run not a good thing. Am I getting enough sleep? How about my nutrition? How about my exercise on the physical side? So it turns into 20 questions of, are there things I could do for simple, continuous, personal improvement? On the mental side, I have slacked off some since actively teaching, listened to too much talk radio, but I am, on the mental side, learning all things pickleball. I've met the national senior champion. He's actually stayed in my home and taught clinics at my facility, expanding both my knowledge and friendship in that area. It's great to pick up a new hobby. It's great to pick up a new sport. It's great to pick up a new subject, a new book. Keep learning your entire life. I know that when I was in college, I spent so much time in my engineering books. It was like, when I'm a senior and I graduate, I'm never going to pick up another book. Well, part of you dies when you have that attitude. All right? I know it's hard now. Keep learning something. On the social side, we need more focused effort to pour into my grandkids and my spouse. More focused effort, okay? I don't think I can ever do enough of that. And then also to lock arms with like-minded couples. These are things I think I can do to expand my social side. On the spiritual side, for me, there's always room for more discipline and a prayer commitment. So, as you draw this square, you should actually come up with some things, and that's this last third of the box there, my action items for this season. And I look at a season in 2 ways. Season to me means the next year, and season for me means the next 15 years. It's a short season, and it's a long season. So some of the things, hey, I need to take massive attention to now. And some of the things, I'm building for the future. Let's take a look at that and how we go there. So this is a gift to you. It can be a blank sheet of paper that you can throw away as soon as you leave. Or it can be a process that once a year you pick it up and you go, let me think about that. My personal story, the little book was given to me as a senior in high school, and it went on the shelf for 12 years until I moved. And I pulled this little book off the shelf when I moved, and I went, what's that? It doesn't take very long to read it. It's a very short book, and it's a generation or two old, but the wisdom is infinite. And I picked up that book, and I read it, and I started doing that once a year since I've been 30. And it made a huge difference. So I'm just trying to pass that on to you. So, I say this with a lot of passion. I say this with a lot of conviction. I say this to you with a lot of confidence. Why? Who is this guy? What's he about? Well, little secret. None of this originated with William Danforth. Not a lick of it. You read the book, somewhere about the 4th chapter, in one sentence, he tells you where he got the idea. It's a lesson that's 2,000 years old, sandwiched between a young man who's 13 years old and a young adult who is 30 years old. And so I'm not speaking in code with you, it's Jesus Christ. And if you go to Luke 2, you may have remembered the story of his family who was on the pilgrimage to Jerusalem for the Passover. Jesus stays there. The family, it's a huge family. The family goes back. 3 days later, they go, where's Jesus? Where is he? They look all over the caravan. He's not around. They go back to Jerusalem, and they find him in the synagogue, and he's teaching the rabbis at 12 years old. Well, boom, that story stops. Then in Luke 3, there's this guy who's 29 years old preaching in the wilderness, and here wanders in this guy, and he says, there's the Messiah. Luke was the physician. He put tremendous detail in his writing. He wrote one verse, Luke 2:52, to cover the years of Jesus from 12 to 30. Covered it all in one verse. And he grew in wisdom and stature and in the eyes of God and man. Wisdom, mentally. Stature, physically. In the eyes of God, spiritually. And man, relationally. That's where Danforth got it. There's nothing new under the sun. But dadgummit, if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. Sounds simple, really hard to do. It makes you think. He grew in wisdom, mentally, and stature, physically, and in the eyes of God, spiritually, and man, relationally. Luke 2:52. You can look it up and check me on it. I came that you might have life and have it in abundance. That's why Jesus was here. If those were the 4 areas that Jesus grew in when he was your age, it might not be too bad an idea to get a principle and a practice of trying to take that for yourself. There's no better model for your life. So personally, I found no better way to regularly examine life and to make some key seasonal adjustments. Remember, I'm using seasonal as a year, seasonal as 15 years. And my hope for you is that from these words and these thoughts, if you will take it on yourself to give this a shot and to really think about it, that it will have a permanent and lasting impact on your journey. A journey of joy, a journey of fulfillment, a journey of accomplishment, a journey of introspection, a journey of progress. But there's more, and I've got 15 minutes more to share with you. You can take that, take this as a gift from me. Now what I want to do is take you into some Martinizing, some thoughts that I had after studying this that led to this book called Techonomics, of what is happening in our society and how to put it in a framework of understanding so that perhaps might be able to make sense out of what's going on in this world. So, we take our metric, and that metric is right in the middle there: mental, physical, social, and spiritual. Now, an individual is time limited. As I mentioned earlier, you've only got one chance at this moment. When it's gone, it's gone. A company, an organization, a church, a school, a club, is nothing more than a collection of individuals. And so if this is infinite wisdom for the individual, what is wisdom for the organization? And a collection of individuals. And I began to mess around with those sides of the square and say, what corresponds for the organization to the mental side? What corresponds for the organizational to the social side? What corresponds for the organization to the spiritual side, and likewise to the physical side? And I created another metric, which is the four-square principle for societies or organizations. And we've got capital, communication, community, and computation. And I wanted to begin to look at those through a different lens. The lens is no longer time. The limiting factor for an organization is money. You've heard time is money, money is time. In an organization, what I have to invest is money and buying people's time and putting them on different tasks. And the question here for an organization is, what is your organizational balance? From an individual to the organization, because it is a collection of individuals, and the limiter is capital, is money, not time. The book Techonomics began to look at, or all of this kind of came together, at things that were changing exponentially during my lifetime. You got to realize, as I was speaking with someone earlier with Whit, about using a slide rule. When I was sitting in your seat, I was using a slide rule. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur, okay? But the fact of the matter is, while I was in college, the first handheld calculator came out. It was a Texas Instrument version, and for the nice right price of $625, I could get a handheld device that would multiply, subtract, add, and divide. $625. And by golly, within a quarter, everybody had to have it just to compete, because with a slide rule, you could get 3 digits of accuracy. With this box that you could punch into, you could get 7 digits of accuracy. Not that the other 4 digits made any difference. But I went from a world where everything was done mechanically to everything being done electronically. And so that's where these insights came. You have had the iPhone in your pocket for your entire life. It's 14 years old. Most of you are in your early 20s. Okay? So you didn't get to see this transition. So what I get to share with you is what led to this transition. The first one is called the computational side. That's the mental side of the individual. It is the mental side of the company. What do you know about your competition? What do you know about your customers? What do you know about supply chains, etc.? The mental side is the computational side. And that computational side has been exploding at an exponential rate. Something called Moore's Law. I won't go into it, but it's doubling every 18 months, which basically means in your pocket, you've got more computational capability than put a man on the moon in 1969 in my lifetime. Now, I don't know about you, but I couldn't afford to put a man on the moon, and I certainly couldn't afford to carry the computational capability of the lunar module around in my pocket. But that's what happens when things are exponential. The second is communication, the social side. And that connectivity, because the computational speed has shrunk and grown so much, the ability to communicate has expanded. First of all, we went from a world of telegraph to a world of wired communication, and now it's wireless, it's everywhere. And you can reach anybody in the world if you just have their email address. That has changed the world. It has made things go from face-to-face to virtual. The spiritual side is really about the fact now that we can do more and more with less and less. And so this ability to communicate with anybody in the world and to do things like genetics that we have a lot of folks playing God these days. And that is a concern as to where we are going as a world. So, with this idea of going from the physical to from the individual to the collective, we can look at the ways to measure health in an organization from those four standpoints. So the fiscal side of capital has to do with your fiscal standing. We have spreadsheets that tell us the balance sheets, financial and human resources, balance of payments, etc. Do we have a lot of red ink or do we have a lot of black ink on our financial balance sheets? The communication, how transparent, how consistent, how frequent, what are the channels that we use to communicate to all of our stakeholders? Computationally, what about data access and market knowledge, research and development, leaders or followers in our industry, in our organization? And finally, community. Are we pulling together or are we pulling apart? Are we like-minded with focus, clear vision, clear purpose, or are we going different directions for all our stakeholders? This is what's in it for me. So you can begin to apply this square principle for the purpose of what? If you are a leader, and the vast majority of you at some point in time are going to be a leader in your home, in your church, in your community, in your company, whatever, this is a tool for leaders to determine, how do I invest that next incremental dollar? The metric for the individual is, how do I invest my next free hour to improve myself in the best way? For the company, it's, how do I invest my next dollar because I've got a weakness here or I've got a strength that I've got to take advantage of. And here's just a little thought experiment which will at least maybe in something that's common thread to us, let you see how you might utilize this to understand the status and the situation of an organization. So what we do here is we say a thought experiment for the United States, our nation, in 1960 and in 2020. 1960, what you would find is that our capital situation was amazing. We were coming out of World War II. Basically, we were the world's reserve currency. We owned the manufacturing capability of the world, and all commerce came through the United States. We were the top dog, okay? So the capital side there is long. Community, a little bit shorter. We held common thoughts about morality. We held common thoughts about education. We had some racial issues that became very tense in the late 1960s. But all in all, it was kind of like a Andy of Mayberry or Leave It to Beaver, if those aren't too old for you to remember those sitcoms. On the computational side, if you think of the computational side compared to today, computers were just starting to emerge. There was no internet. There was no digital anything, no personal computer, etc. The computational side was much smaller as far as what the government could do or have at that juncture. And likewise, communications was analog. It was through a set of twisted pair of copper. It was slow. International communications was very expensive, charged in dollars per minute rather than in pennies per minute. So you go forward, and this is just one man's opinion, all right? You can have your own opinions. But if we look at today, we have massive negative capital balances, so that beautiful green line on the capital has shrunk to almost nothing. If I could cross and put a negative line, I probably would because of our current capital situation. Community, we have, again, my personal opinion, that doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. It's just my personal opinion. Community, we have shrunk significantly because there's such a diversity of thought and the ability to promulgate that everywhere. So I think we're pulling in many different directions. On computation and communication, though, because of the technological advances that have occurred at exponential rates, and I'll talk more about that this afternoon, the computational and communication capabilities at hand for any organization are off the charts today compared to 1960. A linear chart can't even show you that. So this is just the idea of looking at, okay, this is where we were, this is where we are, what would I do about it? And that's just a comparison of those two back to back. Thought process, thought metrics. So in summary to you there, what I want to say is I would suggest, I've made a claim to you that this can help you in creating a successful life journey of joy. Use the metric once a year. The first question you're asking is, am I balanced? If not, ask yourself, what makes me out of balance, and is this a purposeful season that I'm in for my out of balance nature? That's okay. But if it's out of balance because of neglect, if it's out of balance because you haven't analyzed and really taken a look at your heart and your use of time, do something about it. What do you do about it? How would I modify the use of the most precious resource that you have, your time? How would I modify it? Do I need to read another book? Do I need to take better physical care of myself with my nutrition and my sleep? Is there some habit that I need to drop in order to have more energy? Is there an organization that I need to join in order to expand my influence or to learn more from others, to be mentored better? How about my relationship with the Lord and what counts there? Where do, with the investment of more time, my quote free time, do I get the biggest bang for the buck? That's really what the I dare you is all about. So I do dare you to do it once a year, to think about it seriously, to take what I've said to you, not as Lee Martin's words, but as an example of living that comes straight to you from Luke 2:52 from our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to be with you. I hope you checked off a good box today, and I hope I've given you some food for thought that you will carry out of here, have a few discussions with your friends, and you might be thinking about this a year from now, not just 10 minutes from now. Blessings to you. Thank you.